You are unable to out. He was a tall, muscular, quiet man, the kind of quiet man who left a lasting impression, without saying anything. Clint Walker, the dashing cowboy who always did the right thing and won the respect of people everywhere, was the face of classic westerns for a long time. However, what was his personality like off camera? Nobody had ever really figured out what that was. Everyone was curious about his personal life, especially because he only had one kid. She has been silent for years, but now she is ready to share. And you'll see her father differently after hearing what she has to say about him, life and work. Actor Clint Walker was more than that. You wouldn't miss a man like him. He seemed to loom over everyone else as he competed with other actors on film. With a loud voice and powerful shoulders, he stands 6'6". He appeared as though he had just stepped out of an old Western movie. And he did precisely that. Clint's real name was Norman Eugene Walker, and he was born in Hartford, Illinois. His mother was from the Czech Republic, and he had a half-sister and a twin sister named Lucy. He left school to work, like many young men do. Prior to enlisting in the U.S. Merchant Marine at the age of 17, he worked in a factory and on riverboats, among other places. During the Korean War, he even came back. He worked as a hotel doorman in Las Vegas before he became famous, wondering what he would do with his life. Hollywood was his next stop. The world knew him as Clint Walker after he was cast in the lead role of the TV Western Cheyenne in 1955, but talent agent Henry Wilson signed him because of his size and appearance, even changing his name to Jet Norman for a brief while. Cheyenne's achievement was enormous. Following the Civil War, Clint was a nomadic cowboy hero known as Cheyenne Bod. He became well known thanks to the show, which also made his tough yet kind cowboy persona well known. Fans couldn't get enough of him over his 7 seasons as the character. He occasionally even sang on the show. His sweet baritone voice startled many people, and Warner Brothers even released an album featuring him performing traditional tunes. At the same period, Clint worked on a few westerns, including Fort Dobbs 1958, Yellowstone Kelly 1959, and Gold of the Seven Saints 1961, frequently collaborating with Roger Moore and other Warner Brothers stars. He once claimed that the reason he liked making westerns was that they kept him busy and out of doors. Clint's repertoire was not limited to westerns. He worked in a wide range of genres, such as comedies, dramas, and war movies, like The Dirty Dozen 1967, in which Clint played a kind behemoth of a prisoner. Clint featured lead roles in TV series, including Yuma and Killdozer in the 1970s. He also made appearances in iconic movies like Snow Beast and The Night of the Grizzly. As Clint grew older, he turned to writing and collaborated with writer Kirby Jonas on the Western novel Yaqui Gold. Clint Walker received the credit he deserved for his contributions to Western entertainment. In addition to winning the Golden Boot Award in 1997, he was recognized on the Texas Trail of Fame in Dallas in 2017, was inducted into the Hall of Great Western Performers in 2004, and was given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He is still regarded as a genuine symbol of the heyday of television, the Clint Bouncer days. In addition to being a cowboy, Clint Walker led a string of hard, low-paying professions before to becoming famous as the gruff, quiet cowboy that many of us remember from Cheyenne. He worked as a nightclub bouncer in his early career. The role of a bouncer is to keep the unruly guests in check while maintaining the venue's safety and order. As you might imagine, this is no simple assignment. Well, calling Clint by his given first name, Eugene, would be the last thing you would want if you were at the nightclub where he works. As you can see, Eugene Walker, Clint Walker's real name, seemed to detest it. Eugene Walker did not portray himself as a tough guy or Western hero. Eugene probably thought it would look better in a classroom than on the range. People who knew him told me that calling him Eugene at work was nearly always a surefire way to get fired. It wasn't intimate. The name was just too much for him. And that was it once he saw Clint in charge. On and off screen, it was his name and identity. Clint does tone stronger, to be honest. Due to his size, he was cast as a career type. Clint Walker's on-screen image was greatly influenced by his physical presence, as he stands 66 inches tall with a chest measurement of 48 and a waist measurement of 32. Although it hindered his casting, that massive presence gave him entrance to the world of granite-jawed cowboy superstar. Walker even said that it was challenging to cast him and find performers to co-star with him due to his size. He was given a supporting part because he was taller than everyone else and frequently stole the show, whether on purpose or not. Hollywood was still figuring out how to handle actors with unusual heights in the 1950s and 1960s. Because he was a physical character with little influence, Walker was able to cast him in a restricted number of parts. Walker's size forced the producers to either develop a whole plot around him or impose casting restrictions to counterbalance him. They throw in 3 shorter actors to even the odds. Or I go up against a heavy who meets me eye to eye, Walker would frequently joke. In other words, it became into his personal casting curse. When Clint Walker joined Cheyenne in 1955 as Cheyenne Bod, that particular situation should have been predicted. Along with his acting prowess, Clint Walker was ideal for that job because of the size of his build. But after a while, he found it difficult to locate anything but a huge Western lead. He experimented with a variety of genres, including TV thrillers in the 1970s, and war dramas like The Dirty Dozen. But he was never completely free from the pull of his own body. Certainly, critics didn't. His authenticity was weakened by the bulk of his on-screen physique. According to a movie blog that described his previous TV seasons as being wooden and extremely stiff, possibly because he was learning as he went, each director developed an attachment to his energy and physical presence, which made it difficult to build a camera or plot around him. Because his physical presence was so powerful that you could feel him enter the scene before he ever spoke, it prevented a strong or weak tale or growth. That was well received by fans. Clint was a cowboy hero, as ridiculous as that sounds. However, Clint made too much of a statement for casting directors who were looking for some subtlety. That physicality finally confined him over time, provided elements that were unavoidably connected to that picture. As an actor, he had less chances to reach a wider audience. Even his latter endeavors, like writing the book Yaqui Gold, seemed to indicate that he was looking for new forms outside of the confines of Hollywood casting procedures. To put it briefly, Clint Walker's size served as both his cage and his superpower. It defined his jobs, molded his career, and finally confined him to a distinctive image from which he was never fully free. His divorce and personal hardships. There was more to Clint Walker's last years than Western movies and fan letters. These included private issues that affect interpersonal relationships and his public image, ultimately suggesting a deterioration. On screen, Clint Walker looked like a well-trained cowboy. In actuality, he had difficulties, primarily divorce, and reports of alcoholism, all of which influenced the course of his career in subsequent years. From 1948 until their 1968 divorce, Clint was wed to his first wife, Vera Garver. Vera and Clint were wed for almost 2 decades. Valerie was their only daughter. The emotional toll of their separation is mentioned in several tales. Although the official reason for the divorce is still kept under wraps, onlookers believe that as the demands of work and family life increased, they gradually moved on from their marriage and drifted apart. The 1968 divorce occurred during the height of Clint's fame, despite the fact that he later remarried again. The Hollywood press documented and covered the divorce, which helped to hint at the turbulent personal life that Walker was going through behind the tough exterior he portrayed. More concerningly, although Clint battled alcoholism and depression in private, it was also said that he had difficulties in these areas in numerous biographies and news reports. According to one historical account, he battled drunkenness and depressed moods, particularly when the demands of celebrity resulted in stress and increased public visibility. Although these are not isolated incidents, sources claim that the guy on exhibit alluded to or suggested that he occasionally struggled with his inner monologue, and that these issues occasionally permeated his personal life and impacted his reputation. Fans and biographers alike seem to note that Walker's later career contained less starring roles, even though official biographies appear to write these events with some restraint. After Cheyenne finished, his career slowed. Walker never seemed to regain the momentum of his previous years, even if his career was solid with TV series and a few film parts. These connections are made by some sources, who contend that Walker's later decisions will likely be hampered by emotional stress and the lingering consequences of divorce and loss. Tabloid publications and casual fan conversation undoubtedly alluded to some ongoing issues, which further muddled matters. These objects imply that Clint had times of intense alcohol use and emotional upheaval. These accounts suit the retrospective's narrative, albeit having less documentation, attempting to lead a regular life under the pressures of personal trauma and celebrity. In addition to the ongoing effects of divorce, the loss of his second wife in 1994, and the challenge of managing 3 marriages, he had undoubtedly been marked by personal tragedies by the 1970s and beyond. We are definitely observing emotional consequences. Even if he found a new purpose after publishing his Western novel Yaki Gold, and even got married again in 1997. Therefore, even though Clint Walker will always be known as Cheyenne's towering, stoic cowboy hero, his later years gave us a far more relatable story. He struggled with emotional problems, grief, and a divorce that subtly changed the course of his life and profession. Online critiques from fans. Even though Clint Walker was a well-known Western star decades later, not everyone who saw his work was as enthralled. Nowadays, the majority of conversations about Westerns take place online, mostly on Reddit and forums for old movies. Clint Walker frequently gets mixed reviews, with some people pointing out that his manner might come across as a little gruff. Commenters on one Western website expressed conflicting, even humorous, opinions about Walker's statement, but they overwhelmingly praised his on-screen persona. He said of Walker and Fess Parker, they both had deep voices. The vowels at the ends of the words, however, are where the twang is found. Even still, several of the remarks praised his excellent modulation, saying that he was soft-spoken and well-modulated. The twang persisted, and disagreements arose over whether it was theatrical or genuine. A lot of discussion on the film board said that Walker's body was more appealing. According to one user, Walker's massive voice and amazing body hinted that he was a star, but once Cheyenne left the show, that posed issues for production. He wasn't a good supporting player because of his incredible size. There were fewer chances to show off one's versatility, or perform complex dramatic roles, because of the default fame persona. He was not a great actor in the licensed sense, according to critics on forums even years after his death. For some strange reason, his style or voice never got me to where I thought of him as a very good actor. One commenter continued, "That remark made a difference. I always laughed when he got into his low custom Jag." Some thought his performance didn't match up to the image, while others praised his physical appearance. Fans complimented his physique and on-screen persona in another Reddit topic, in the old-school celebrities community. He was a big guy. He had Superman's appearance. However, they also acknowledged that his performance was mediocre in comparison to his Hollywood on-screen peers. Subtlety was overpowered by him. A pattern develops from all of this. Cheyenne possessed a cowboy toughness that captivated fans. Zoom in, though. Some voices in the modern age claim that the portions were predictable, the dialogue is heavy, and the performance feels wooden. According to one critic, they felt like the same Western-style deliveries were being made again. In Tro, the acting was somewhat rigid. In the past, the genre would have benefited from such taciturn sincerity, but today's forum posters are seen as wooden, with only a few emotions showing through. Other shooter session remarks, however, continue to be positive. Fans claim that his non-nasal, more velvety voice, which resembled a bass baritone, at least provided warmth beneath a slick cowboy. Retrospectives still point out significant shortcomings, such as a Western twang that doesn't always mesh well with contemporary audiences, performances that some consider stiff or unvarying, and a career characterized by roles that left little room for versatility due to his imposing stature. Even though many fans still admire Clint Walker's larger-than-life presence and classic star power, some admirers may nod in agreement with his mythic position, but they are unable to hide the flaws in his voice or the oddities in his typecasting, particularly when they are looking through a magnifying glass in the context of today's critical lenses. The Man Who Lived. Although Clint Walker's horrific tragedy in 1971 sounds like something from a movie, it actually happened and permanently altered public perception of him. He suffered a horrible accident while skiing on Mammoth Mountain. One of his ski poles pierced straight through his chest and into his heart after he fell. It was a chance incident that may have resulted in anyone dying. Doctors declared him dead when he arrived at the hospital, but a doctor noticed a slight flutter of life at the last second. The other medical staff sent him to emergency surgery with that glimmer of life. Barely a beat. Incredibly, he survived. The speed at which Clint healed adds even more amazing elements to the story. After 2 months, he returned to his job. A typical layperson wouldn't even be able to move around so rapidly after suffering a severe cardiac ailment, much less act and work on physical sequences. But Clint was powerful. With years of experience playing tough guys in Western roles, he had a large body and weighed 66 inches. But it was more than just bodily recuperation. This has to do with a spirit, a will to life, and a determination. Clint stated in interviews following the accident that it let him see things differently. He became less bothered by the trivial things. Everything that used to make me anxious, including politics, business, and negative publicity. I dismissed it all, concentrating on my family, my health, and whatever that brought me peace. His encounter with death appeared to clear his mind and put an end to the chaos in his life. It is impossible to fake. He spent the rest of his life with conviction and clarity, even discussing the accident years after it had happened. Instead of using drama, he responded in a humble tone. Playing the hero or gaining sympathy was out of the question. It was just a man becoming more grateful and humbled by the fact that he was given another chance at life. And maybe after that, people were even more moved by that. He was more than just the movie cowboy. While others who made the same decisions died, he was the man who faced death, made the risky decision to live. Undoubtedly, he would never have completely comprehended or valued this second opportunity before. Everything about Valerie Walker. Many people may not be familiar with Valerie Walker, a quiet history maker. She was not a celebrity or someone who was looking for attention. Instead, she created a courageous and daring existence that was governed by self-control and bravery. Valerie, who was born in 1950, entered the aviation industry at a time when female pilots were uncommon. She had a strong love for flying and was unaffected by difficulties. She became a flight teacher after earning her flight credentials, and she has flown in a variety of settings, including DC-3 bush planes in Africa and law enforcement helicopter patrols, enforcement in the U.S. When she joined Western Airlines as one of the first female commercial airline pilots in 1976, it was her big break. This in and of itself was an enormous achievement, especially at a period when males dominated the aviation sector. Later, she retired as a highly regarded captain and flew for Delta Airlines, operating huge aircraft such as the Boeing 727, 737, 757, and 767. She loved more than just flying, though. Valerie had trained in martial arts for many years as well. She received instruction in Jiu-Jitsu, Wing Chun, Jukido, and Kino Karate. Even a black belt was awarded to her. She focused on teaching martial arts and self-defense tactics. After she had calmed down after flying, she taught self-defense to citizens and airline staff using her knowledge of hand-to-hand combat and life experiences. Valerie has always been quite modest for us, despite her incredible achievements. She stays off social media and never shares details of her private life with others. She probably decides not to use social media. She has favored letting her art do the talking. We are all reminded by Valerie Walker's narrative that praise isn't always necessary for achievement. Her turbulent journey through the sky and martial arts is a testament to the fact that having courage, grit, and fortitude can propel one to new heights, no pun intended, whether they are thousands of feet above the ground or through life's most difficult obstacles. Death of Clint Walker. In May 1971, Clint Walker experienced an almost unbelievable scary encounter. It sounds like the storyline of a movie. What began as a pleasant day of skiing at California's Mammoth Mountain swiftly devolved into a near-fatal incident. Clint lost control while skiing down the mountain's twisty, steep slopes. He went down hard, and something terrible happened as he was falling. He was stabbed in the heart by one of his own ski poles. When he was brought to the hospital, the situation first appeared dire. Since he was so critically ill, the doctors pronounced him dead, which is what most people would think. But in what can only be described as a miracle, one of the physicians saw a glimmer of life. The medical team moved swiftly, placing Clint in emergency surgery right away and successfully repairing his gravely damaged heart. Coming through something so horrible is hard to imagine, yet Clint accomplished it. Not only did Clint escape the event, but he also recovered more quickly than anticipated, which adds even more significance to his narrative. After the accident, he returned to work after 2 months. After such a near-death experience, the majority of people would still be recuperating, and some would even be retiring. However, Clint wasn't like most people. That encounter altered him, and he would later admit in interviews that it gave him a whole different outlook on life. After facing death, Clint had much more to be thankful for. He was reminded to live a more purposeful life. Many years later, on May 21, 2018, Clint passed away in Grass Valley, California. Less than 10 days before his 90th honest birthday, he passed away from congestive heart failure. Clint's devoted family at the time of his death consisted of a daughter, his third wife, a half-sister, and a grandson. Lucille, his twin sister, passed away in 2000. Even though Clint's 1971 survival tale isn't particularly noteworthy, it is remembered today not just because it is so uncommon, but also because it embodies the type of man he was: tenacious, strong, and resilient. The real him. Valerie Walker, Clint Walker's daughter, offered a unique and moving insight into her sentiments at the time of her father's death in May 2018, at the age of 90. In her statement to the Associated Press, Valerie said, "He was a warrior. He was fighting to the end." Valerie was not merely honoring her father, rather, she was expressing one of the strongest bonds between a father and his daughter. It expressed understanding, affection, and quiet power. Valerie spent the majority of her life in the background. She liked to remain anonymous and would hardly ever give interviews. However, after Clint's death, she emerged from the background and gave viewers a brief taste of his personality off-screen in a few lines. In addition to expressing appreciation for her father's tenacity, Valerie's reply revealed an emotional comprehension of the hardships he faced in his last hours. She said it all when she referred to him as a warrior. It was more than a summary of his struggles with bodily well-being. In essence, it was a summary of Clint's life. Adversity didn't scare him away. Clint handled things head-on, whether it was dealing with a life of fame or a potentially fatal skiing injury in the 1970s. These comments, in Valerie's opinion, were a testament to toughness, but they ultimately sprung from love. The fact that it was so simple and unadorned only added to its potency. She didn't go into great detail in lengthy paragraphs. She simply spoke her feelings, and honesty and sincerity are the epitome of it. Something sincere, then. Not only did Valerie recognize the renowned tough guy, but she also revealed Clint Walker's identity to the person who knew him the best. Clint Walker's life was characterized by quiet strength, discipline, and a feeling of purpose rather than just the cowboy hats, broad shoulders, and grim stare we saw on screen. He didn't have to pursue celebrity in the conventional meaning of the word, so he never did. His mere presence left an influence on Hollywood that continues to this day. Clint's life off-screen was characterized by calm and discipline. He remained focused whether he was working out, taking in the scenery, or working on quiet moments away from the cameras. The stars of his era were unable to accomplish that feat. Clint was able to maintain his silence in the face of loudness that was established as a basis in a world where it is expected. Even if the world had moved on from Clint, he remained the quintessential American hero. Perhaps the most amazing thing about him was how happy he appeared to be with his own way. Never following trends or altering to meet the expectations of others, he acted as he truly was, and led a life that didn't need approval from others. Perhaps Clint's greatest legacy was his ability to preserve the things that were significant in his life. Even though fans may have wondered why there were no interviews, appearances, or memories of a family life made public, his influence extends beyond his motion pictures. It is still evident in the tacit regard that people still have for him. Clint Walker was ultimately much more than Cheyenne Bod. He was a man who would handle life with grace, dignity, and silent fortitude. When someone lives a life like his, their life speaks for them. Thus, he didn't have to say anything. It is a legacy that will endure forever. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up if you liked learning about the life and legacy of Clint Walker, the man behind the cowboy. His tale serves as a reminder that genuine character doesn't require attention, and that true power frequently resides in solitude. More unseen Hollywood tales, lost legends, and in-depth looks at the lives of the celebrities you believed you knew are all here. Make sure you click the subscribe button and activate the notification bell if that's your thing. We appreciate your time and hope to see you at the next one.